The soft hum of the television fills the living room as I sit in my favorite chair, a mug of coffee cradled in my hands. The boys are already in bed, and the house is quiet, too quiet. Emily hasn't been home all evening, and her text said she'd be late because of book club. It used to sound believable, but tonight, my gut tells me otherwise. The sound of her car pulling into the driveway snaps me out of my thoughts. I glance at the clock, 10:45 p.m. She's almost 2 hours late. When she steps inside, she's already pulling off her scarf, her hair slightly messy. "Hey," she says casually, avoiding my eyes as she heads straight for the stairs. "Late meeting?" I ask, keeping my tone light. "Yeah, we got caught up in a discussion," she replies, her back to me. There's something off in her voice, but I don't push. Not yet. Instead, I wait until I hear the water running upstairs. That's when I notice something unusual, her perfume. Emily doesn't wear perfume often, and when she does, it's subtle. Tonight, it's not subtle. It's intoxicating and strong, but not familiar. My chest tightens as curiosity takes over. I head to the laundry hamper in the corner of the bathroom. There, I find them. A set of black lace panties, damp and sticky. My hands tremble as I hold them, my mind racing. A dozen questions flood my thoughts, but one stands out above the rest. What has she done? The sound of the water shutting off jolts me. Heart pounding, I shove the panties back into the hamper and move to the bedroom, pretending to check my phone. She walks in, wrapped in a towel, looking calm, too calm. "Everything okay?" I ask, watching her closely. She nods, her expression unreadable. "Just tired. I'm heading to bed." As she crawls under the covers, I feel the weight of suspicion settling over me. Something is wrong. Deep down, I already know the truth, but I'm not ready to face it. Not yet. The morning sun pours through the blinds, but it doesn't bring the usual sense of peace. Emily is already gone, having left early for a volunteer meeting. I sit at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee, trying to piece everything together. The lingering scent of her perfume from last night feels like a taunt. I grab my phone and open her call log. My hands hesitate for a moment, guilt creeping in, but the memory of those lace panties steals my resolve. Her phone isn't locked. She's always trusted me not to snoop. That trust feels painfully ironic now. The log is a minefield of calls to and from a single name, Lila W. It's listed with 3 numbers, home, work, and cell. Except, Lila isn't Emily's friend. She's barely mentioned her in years. My mind starts connecting I didn't even know existed. I pull out my laptop and search for the work number tied to Lila. It's connected to a local engineering firm. A quick cross-reference with their staff directory reveals a name that sends a chill down my spine. Kyle Winters. He works in the same department as Lila. Suddenly, everything makes sense. My grip tightens on the edge of the table. The late-night calls, the frequent meetings, the perfume, and those damned lace panties. The betrayal feels like a knife twisting in my gut, but I'm not ready to confront her. I need proof, cold, undeniable proof. I grab a notebook from the drawer and jot down the details, Kyle's name, the work address, and the timestamps of the calls. My mind races with a mix of anger and determination. If Emily thinks she can keep this secret, she's underestimating me. The front door creaks open, snapping me out of my thoughts. The boys burst in from the backyard, laughing and arguing about who won their impromptu soccer game. Their voices bring me a brief sense of calm, a reminder of what's truly at stake. I can't let her lies destroy the family we built. Not without a fight. The boys are off to school, and the house falls silent again. Emily left in a rush, her hair still damp from the shower. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, something she hasn't done in weeks, and mumbled something about a work errand. Her sudden change in demeanor is almost more damning than her indifference. I sit at the dining table, my notebook open. If I'm going to uncover the truth, I need a plan. This isn't just about catching her. It's about being prepared for what comes next. The boys deserve better than chaos, and I refuse to let her lies tear their world apart. A quick call to a friend sets the wheels in motion. Mike used to work as a private investigator before starting his own security business. If anyone can help me, it's him. "Mike, I need a favor," I say as soon as he answers. He hesitates, likely picking up on the tension in my voice. What's going on, man? It's Emily. I think she's seeing someone else. I need proof. Can you help me? There's a pause on the other end, then a heavy sigh. All right. Send me her schedule, the places she frequents, and any names you suspect. I'll get someone on it. After hanging up, I feel a small sense of relief. Finally, I'm doing something, but there's still a long road ahead. Later that afternoon, I decide to take matters into my own hands for now. Emily mentioned meeting a client at a cafe downtown. It's not far, and my gut tells me to check it out. I park a block away, keeping a low profile, and step inside. The smell of freshly brewed coffee fills the air as I scan the room. My heart drops when I spot her at a corner table. She's not alone. A man sits across from her, leaning in with a familiarity that turns my stomach. His hand brushes hers as they talk, and she doesn't pull away. Kyle Winters. The name from her call log now has a face. Tall, athletic, with an easy confidence that makes my blood boil. I snap a picture with my phone, my hands shaking. Emily laughs at something he says, her smile wide and genuine. It's the smile I used to think was meant only for me. I slip out of the cafe unnoticed, my chest tight with anger and betrayal. The proof is stacking up, but it's not enough. Not yet. I need more. I drive away from the cafe, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turn white. The image of Emily laughing with Kyle plays on a loop in my mind. I want to confront her, demand an explanation, but I know better. If I go in unprepared, she'll twist the narrative, and I'll end up being the bad guy. No, I need airtight proof. Once I'm home, I call Mike again. I saw them together, I say, my voice tight. She's meeting a guy named Kyle Winters. He works at an engineering firm downtown. I've got a picture of them, but I need more. Can you set up surveillance? Mike doesn't hesitate. I'll have someone tail her starting tomorrow. We'll get you everything you need. The next day, I go about my routine as if nothing has changed. Emily is cheerful at breakfast, chatting with the boys about their upcoming soccer game. She kisses me on the cheek before leaving for work, and I force myself to smile back. The casual affection feels like a mockery, but I stay calm. By midday, I get the first update from Mike. She's at the same cafe again, he says. And yes, she's with Kyle. We've got pictures of them leaving together and getting into his car. Where are they going? I ask, my stomach twisting. Looks like his apartment, Mike replies grimly. She stayed there for about 2 hours yesterday, too. The confirmation hits me like a punch to the gut. This isn't just an emotional affair. It's physical. My hands tremble as I hang up the phone. There's no escaping the truth now. Emily is cheating on me, and she doesn't even bother to hide it. That evening, she comes home late again, claiming her meeting ran over. I watch her closely, looking for any sign of guilt, but she's as calm as ever. The boys are already asleep, and the house is quiet as we sit across from each other at the kitchen table. How was your day? I ask, my tone even. Busy, she says with a faint smile. What about you? Productive, I reply, forcing a smile. The tension between us feels like a ticking bomb, but she doesn't notice. Or maybe she just doesn't care. I stay up late that night, scrolling through the photos Mike sent me. Each one feels like a dagger to the heart, but I can't stop looking. Emily, laughing with Kyle. Emily, getting into his car. Emily, walking into his apartment. The life I thought we built together crumbles with every click. As the clock strikes midnight, I make a decision. This ends now. The morning light streams through the windows, but it doesn't bring its usual warmth. I sit at the kitchen table, the photos Mike sent me spread out before me like pieces of a puzzle I wish I could unsee. Emily moves around the kitchen, humming softly as she pours her coffee. She's oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Emily, I say, my voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. Can we talk? She turns, her smile faltering. Of course. What's on your mind? I motion for her to sit. She hesitates, her eyes searching mine for a clue, but she doesn't find one. With a shrug, she joins me at the table, her coffee mug cradled in her hands. I've been noticing some changes lately, I begin, keeping my tone neutral. You've been out a lot more, spending time away from home. I just want to make sure everything is okay. Her eyes widen slightly, and for a split second, I see a flicker of something. Guilt? Panic? She recovers quickly, smiling as she shakes her head. Oh, come on. Don't tell me you're worried. You know how busy work and these events have been lately. It's nothing. I push the photos across the table. Is this nothing? The blood drains from her face as she stares at the images. Her fingers tremble as she reaches for them, but she doesn't pick them up. Instead, she looks at me, her lips parted in shock. Where did you get these? Does it matter? I reply, my voice cold. What matters is that I know. I know about Kyle. I know about the lies. I know everything, Emily. She leans back, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. It's not what you think, she says finally, her voice barely a whisper. Then tell me. I snap. Make me understand, because right now, it looks like my wife has been sneaking around with another man while I've been here, raising our kids and trusting her blindly. Her eyes glisten with tears, and for a moment, I think she's going to deny it. But then her shoulders slump, and she looks down at her lap. I'm sorry, she says, her voice breaking. It happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far. My chest tightens as her words sink in. This isn't some misunderstanding or innocent mistake. She's admitting it. Betrayal courses through me like a tidal wave, but I force myself to stay composed. I can't let her see how broken I am. Why? I ask, my voice cracking despite my efforts to stay calm. Why would you do this to us? To our family? She shakes her head, tears streaming down her face. I don't know. I don't have an excuse. I was stupid, and I wasn't thinking. But I swear, it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything? I repeat, my voice rising. You risked everything we built for something that didn't mean anything? Her silence is deafening. I push back my chair and stand, unable to sit any longer. The weight of her betrayal feels suffocating, but I refuse to let it crush me. Not now. Not ever. This isn't over, I say, my voice steady again. We're going to figure out what happens next, but you need to understand something. I'm not the fool you think I am. I leave the kitchen, her muffled sobs following me as I head upstairs. The fight isn't over, but for now, I need to regroup. The door clicks shut behind me as I step into our bedroom, the weight of the confrontation still pressing on my chest. Her sobs echo faintly from the kitchen, but I force myself to block them out. Emotion can wait. Right now, I need clarity. I need a plan. I grab my phone and call Mike. His voice is calm, reassuring. How'd it go? He asks. She admitted it. I reply, my voice tight. But that's not enough. I need to make sure this doesn't blow up in my face, especially with the boys involved. You've already got the proof, Mike says. Now it's about how you use it. We discuss next steps, and I jot down notes as he lays out a plan. First, I'll need a lawyer, someone sharp and experienced. Mike offers a recommendation, and I waste no time dialing the number. An assistant picks up, and within minutes, I'm scheduled for a consultation the following morning. With that settled, I open the drawer of my nightstand and pull out a small notebook. It's where I've been documenting everything. Emily's schedule, the odd calls, the pictures from Mike. I flip through the pages, adding today's confrontation to the timeline. Every detail matters. I can't afford to leave anything out. As I write, my thoughts drift to the boys. Jake and Liam don't know what's happening yet, and I'm determined to keep it that way for as long as possible. They deserve stability, not the chaos that's brewing beneath the surface. But I know the day is coming when I'll have to tell them something. The thought makes my stomach churn. Later that evening, Emily approaches me cautiously, her eyes red and swollen. She looks like a shadow of the confident woman who left the house this morning. Can we talk? She asks, her voice hoarse. I nod, motioning for her to sit. Say what you need to say. She takes a deep breath, her hands trembling in her lap. I'm sorry, she begins, her voice cracking. I know I've hurt you, and I hate myself for it. I made a mistake, one I'll regret for the rest of my life. But I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose us. Her words hang in the air, heavy and desperate. I study her, searching for sincerity. Part of me wants to believe her, to cling to the idea that this can be salvaged. But the other part, the part that remembers the lies and the betrayal, won't let me. I need time. I say finally, my tone firm but not unkind. This isn't something we can fix overnight. And honestly, I don't even know if it can be fixed. Her face crumples, but she nods. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. As she leaves the room, I feel a pang of guilt. She looks so broken, so unlike the woman I married. But I can't let myself forget what brought us here. Her choices, her betrayal. I glance at my notebook, at the timeline that now feels like the blueprint of my life. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I wake up early, the weight of the previous night still heavy on my mind. Emily is already in the kitchen, preparing breakfast for the boys. She moves quietly, avoiding eye contact, but I can feel her eyes darting to me when she thinks I'm not looking. Her guilt is palpable. I sit at the table, forcing a smile as Jake and Liam argue about soccer practice. Their chatter is a welcome distraction, a reminder of what matters most. Emily places a plate of eggs in front of me, her hands trembling slightly. I glance at her, but she avoids my gaze. Thanks, I mutter, keeping my tone neutral. She nods silently and returns to the stove. Once the boys head off to school, the tension in the room becomes almost unbearable. Emily sits across from me, clutching her coffee cup as though it's the only thing keeping her grounded. I know things aren't okay. She begins hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. But I want to make them right. Her words hang in the air, but I don't respond immediately. Instead, I take a deep breath, leaning forward with my hands clasped on the table. This isn't about what you want anymore, Emily. It's about what's best for our boys and for me. She flinches, her shoulders slumping. I'll do whatever it takes, she says again, her voice cracking. Just tell me what I need to do. I let her words linger for a moment before replying. First, you need to cut ties with him. No more calls, no more meetings, no more anything. I want proof that it's over. She nods quickly, her hands tightening around the mug. Done, she says, her voice shaking. I'll call him today. Second, I continue, you need to be honest with me. No more lies, no more excuses. If I catch you hiding something again, it's over. Completely. Tears well up in her eyes, but she nods again. I swear, John, no more lies. And third, I say, my voice growing firmer, I need space. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I can't even think about that while you're hovering over me, pretending everything's fine. Her breath catches, and for a moment, I see a flash of fear in her eyes. Space? She asks, her voice trembling. What does that mean? It means I'm staying in the guest room, I reply. For now, we're co-parents. That's it. I'll decide what happens next when I'm ready. She nods slowly, the tears spilling over now. I understand. She whispers. I'll do whatever it takes. I stand, grabbing my keys and notebook. I've got a meeting, I say, my tone flat. We'll talk more later. As I walk out the door, I feel a strange mix of relief and sadness. Setting boundaries was the right move, but it doesn't make the pain any easier. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a long road ahead. The drive to the lawyer's office feels surreal. My mind replays the conversation with Emily, her tear-streaked face etched into my memory. Part of me feels a twinge of guilt for being so cold, but the sharper part reminds me that her choices led us here. I can't afford to let emotions cloud my judgment. Not now. When I arrive, the office is modest but professional. A secretary greets me warmly and asks me to wait. A few minutes later, I'm ushered into a small conference room where a sharp-looking man in his 40s greets me with a firm handshake. Mr. Carter, he says, gesturing for me to sit. I'm Andrew Green. What can I do for you? I lay out everything. Emily's behavior, the evidence of her affair, the photos, and my concerns about the boys. Andrew listens intently, occasionally jotting down notes. His calm demeanor is reassuring, even as I recount the worst parts of my marriage unraveling. When I finish, he leans back in his chair, steepling his fingers. You've done a good job gathering evidence, he says. The pictures, call logs, and her admission give us a strong foundation if this goes to court. But I need to ask, what do you want out of this? I take a deep breath, my mind racing. I want to protect my kids, I say finally. They're my priority. If she wants to fix things, I'll consider it, but I won't let her lies destroy our family. Andrew nods. Fair enough. My advice is to file for legal separation for now. It establishes clear boundaries and allows you to retain control of your finances and assets while you decide your next steps. Will that affect the boys? I ask. Not immediately, he replies. But it gives us leverage if custody becomes an issue. We can also draft a temporary parenting plan to ensure stability for them. I agree, and Andrew begins drafting the necessary paperwork. As he works, I feel a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time since discovering the affair, I'm taking control of the situation. When I leave the office, I call Mike to update him. He's impressed with the steps I've taken, but warns me to stay vigilant. Cheaters don't always quit when they're caught, he says. Keep your eyes open. The afternoon passes in a blur of errands and work calls. When I return home, Emily is waiting in the living room. She stands as I walk in, wringing her hands nervously. I called him, she says quickly. It's over. I blocked his number, too. I nod, keeping my expression neutral. Good, I reply, brushing past her toward the stairs. John, she calls after me, her voice trembling. Please, just give me a chance to prove I can fix this. I pause at the foot of the stairs, my back to her. We'll see, I say without turning around. As I shut the door to the guest room, I feel the weight of the day settling over me. The road ahead is uncertain, but I know one thing for sure. I'm not going to let this break me. The next few days pass like a fog, each one blending into the next. Emily and I keep our interactions minimal, exchanging only what's necessary to manage the boys and the household. The tension is thick, but neither of us dares to ignite it further. I stay in the guest room, avoiding unnecessary conversation. Every time I see her, I'm reminded of the betrayal, and it takes everything in me to stay composed. Jake and Liam, perceptive as ever, begin to notice the cracks. During dinner one evening, Liam looks up from his plate, his brow furrowed. Dad, he says, his voice cautious. Why are you sleeping in the guest room? Emily freezes, her fork halfway to her mouth. I set mine down, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups need space to figure things out, I say, keeping my tone light. It doesn't mean we don't love you. Jake doesn't buy it. He crosses his arms, his gaze sharp. Did you and Mom have a fight? Before I can respond, Emily jumps in. We're just working through some things, sweetie. Don't worry about it. Liam looks back and forth between us, then shrugs and goes back to his food. Jake, however, keeps staring at me. His eyes are full of questions, but he doesn't ask them. I know the truth will come out eventually, but now isn't the time. Later that night, as the boys sleep, I sit in the guest room scrolling through the pictures Mike sent me again. The evidence is clear, damning, and final. Yet, part of me still struggles with what to do. Divorce feels inevitable, but the thought of breaking up our family tears at me. A knock on the door pulls me from my thoughts. Emily steps in hesitantly, holding a cup of tea. I thought you might need this, she says softly. I take the cup without a word, setting it on the nightstand. She lingers in the doorway, her hands twisting together. She begins, then stops. I know you don't believe me right now, but I'm doing everything I can to make this right. I ended things with Kyle. I've been honest with you about everything since. I'll keep doing whatever it takes, John. Her voice cracks, and for a moment, I see the woman I fell in love with. But then the memory of her laughing with Kyle flashes through my mind, and the warmth is replaced by cold resolve. I need more than words, Emily, I say, my voice steady. It's going to take time. A lot of time. She nods, her eyes glistening with tears. I understand, she whispers before retreating to the hallway. As the door clicks shut, I take a sip of the tea, the warmth doing little to ease the chill in my chest. Her effort is noted, but it's not enough. Not yet. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. The next morning, I finalize the separation paperwork with Andrew. When I return home, I hand the documents to Emily. Her face pales as she reads them, but she doesn't argue. She just nods, defeated. For the first time, I feel like I'm in control of my life again. It's not the end, but it's a step forward. The day the separation becomes official feels strangely anticlimactic. Emily signs the papers without resistance, her expression a mix of sadness and resignation. We agree to remain under the same roof for the boys' sake, but with clear boundaries. She'll stay in the master bedroom, and I'll continue using the guest room. To the boys, little seems to change outwardly, but I can sense their quiet observation, their unspoken questions. As I adjust to this new arrangement, Mike's updates continue to trickle in. While Emily claims to have ended things with Kyle, I need to be sure. Trusting her at face value is no longer an option. Mike keeps tabs discreetly, and so far, there's been no sign of further contact. It's a small relief, but it doesn't erase the damage already done. One evening, while the boys are at a friend's house, Emily approaches me in the living room. She's holding a small notebook, her hands trembling slightly. "I've been writing," she says, her voice tentative. "About us. About everything I did. I thought, maybe it could help." I take the notebook cautiously, flipping through the pages. Her handwriting is neat but hurried, as though she's been pouring her thoughts out without pause. Each page is filled with apologies, self-reflection, and attempts to explain her actions. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she continues, her voice barely audible, "but I needed to put it all down, to show you that I'm trying." I glance at her, noting the sincerity in her eyes. "I'll read it," I say simply, tucking the notebook into my pocket. That night, after the house falls silent, I open the notebook. Her words are raw, filled with regret and pain. She writes about feeling trapped, about looking for excitement in all the wrong places. She admits she never stopped loving me but let her selfishness cloud her judgment. It's heartbreaking, but it doesn't absolve her. If anything, it underscores how much she's broken. The next morning, I take the notebook to my lawyer. "I want this documented," I tell Andrew. "If this ever escalates to custody or divorce proceedings, I want her words on record." Andrew nods, understanding the importance of protecting my position. "Good call," he says. "This adds another layer to your case, should you need it." As I leave the office, I feel a growing sense of clarity. Emily's attempt to reconcile is sincere, but sincerity isn't enough to erase betrayal. My focus remains on the boys and ensuring their stability. They deserve better than a fractured home built on lies. That afternoon, I pick the boys up from soccer practice. Jake climbs into the front seat, his face flushed with excitement. "Dad, guess what? I scored the winning goal today." "That's awesome, buddy," I reply, genuinely smiling for the first time in days. Liam pipes up from the back seat, recounting his own plays with equal enthusiasm. Their energy is infectious, reminding me of what's truly at stake. As we pull into the driveway, I make a silent promise to myself. No matter what happens with Emily, I'll do everything in my power to protect my sons. They're my anchor, the reason I keep pushing forward. The next few days are uneventful, at least on the surface. Emily keeps her distance, sticking to her promise to respect my boundaries. The boys go about their routines, their laughter filling the house and keeping the atmosphere from feeling too heavy. For their sake, I maintain a facade of normalcy, though the undercurrent of tension remains. One evening, as I'm sitting in the living room sorting through some paperwork, Jake and Liam wander in. They flop onto the couch, their energy subdued in a way that feels unusual. I glance up, sensing that something is on their minds. "Everything okay, guys?" I ask, setting the papers aside. Jake fidgets with the hem of his shirt, avoiding my gaze. Liam, on the other hand, meets my eyes directly. "Dad, are you and Mom getting a divorce?" he asks bluntly. The question feels like a punch to the gut, but I manage to keep my composure. "Why would you ask that?" I reply carefully. Jake finally speaks up, his voice quieter than usual. "Because things are different. You're not sleeping in the same room. You barely talk to each other. And we've seen you upset a lot lately." I take a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Your mom and I are going through a tough time right now," I admit. "We're trying to figure things out, but whatever happens, you two will always be our priority. We both love you very much, and that will never change." Liam's expression hardens. "Is it because of Kyle?" The room feels like it tilts. I stare at him, stunned. "How do you know about Kyle?" I manage to ask. Jake speaks up again, this time with more confidence. "We're not dumb, Dad. We overheard Mom talking on the phone a few times. She thought we weren't paying attention, but we were. And some of our friends' parents saw her with him, Liam adds. They told us, but we didn't want to believe it. My heart aches at their words, at the realization that they've been carrying this burden in silence. I lean forward, resting my elbows on my knees. I'm sorry you've had to deal with this, I say sincerely. I should have talked to you sooner, but I wanted to protect you. Liam shrugs. It's not your fault, Dad. We just want to know what's going to happen. I nod, appreciating their maturity despite the situation. Right now, I'm focused on making sure you two are okay, I tell them. We'll figure out the rest as we go, but I promise to always be honest with you from now on. They both nod, and Liam leans over to give me a quick hug. Jake follows suit, their support giving me a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever happens, I won't let this situation define them. Later that night, I replay the conversation in my mind. The boys' resilience amazes me, but it also reinforces my responsibility to shield them from further pain. Emily's actions have already caused enough damage, and I won't let it ripple into their futures. The house is quiet when I wake the next morning. The boys are still asleep, and Emily is sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring into space. She doesn't notice me at first, and I take a moment to study her. She looks tired. More than tired, really. She looks defeated. When she notices me, she straightens up, trying to muster a weak smile. "Good morning," she says softly. I nod in acknowledgement, grabbing a mug and pouring myself some coffee. The silence stretches between us, heavy and unspoken. I can feel her watching me, waiting for something, but I don't give her anything. Finally, she speaks. "I've been thinking," she begins cautiously, "about everything. About us. About the boys." I take a seat across from her, saying nothing, waiting for her to continue. "I know I've ruined so much," she says, her voice trembling, "but I want to try to make things right. Not just for us, but for Jake and Liam. They deserve better than this mess I've created." Her words are sincere, but sincerity doesn't erase betrayal. "What exactly are you planning to do about it?" I ask, my tone flat. She takes a deep breath, as if steeling herself. "I want to go to therapy," she says. "For myself, first. To figure out why I did what I did. And then, maybe, we could try couples therapy, if you're open to it." Her suggestion surprises me, though I keep my expression neutral. It's the first proactive step she's taken since everything fell apart, but it doesn't change the fact that trust is a long way from being rebuilt. "I'll think about it," I reply finally, taking a sip of my coffee. She nods, seeming to accept that as the best answer she'll get for now. "I've already called a therapist," she adds. "I have my first appointment next week." "Good," I say, meaning it. If she's serious about change, this is the first step. But it doesn't mean I'm ready to forgive. As the day goes on, I notice subtle shifts in her behavior. She spends more time with the boys, helping Liam with his science project and playing soccer with Jake in the backyard. She cooks dinner for the first time in weeks, a meal we all sit down to as a family. It's almost normal. After the boys go to bed, she approaches me again. "I know it's going to take time," she says, standing in the doorway of the guest room. "And I know you might never trust me again, but I'm going to keep trying, even if it's just for the boys." Her words linger after she leaves, and I find myself torn. Her efforts seem genuine, but the scars of her betrayal run deep. For now, I decide to focus on what I can control, being there for the boys and protecting the stability we've managed to salvage. A week passes, and true to her word, Emily starts therapy. She doesn't share much about the sessions, but I can see the effect they're having. She's quieter, more reflective, and seems determined to repair the damage she's caused. It's a small step, but it's better than the hollow apologies I've grown used to hearing. Jake and Liam notice the change, too. They've started spending more time with her, cautiously warming up to the mom they've always known but now view with a hint of skepticism. I watch from the sidelines, torn between hope and doubt. One evening, as I'm finishing up some work in the guest room, there's a knock on the door. Emily steps inside, holding a folder. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" she asks. I gesture for her to sit. She places the folder on the desk and takes a deep breath. "I've been working on something," she begins, sliding the folder toward me. It's a plan. A way to rebuild what I've broken. Curious but cautious, I open the folder. Inside are handwritten notes, schedules, and a list of goals. She's outlined everything, from attending regular therapy sessions to spending more quality time with the boys. There's even a section about boundaries she wants to set for herself, including cutting off contact with anyone who contributed to the affair. I know this doesn't erase what I've done, she says quietly, but I want you to see that I'm serious about making things right. I skim through the pages, impressed by the effort but still wary. This is a good start, I admit, closing the folder. But it's just that, a start. Words on paper don't mean much if they're not followed by action. She nods, her expression somber. I understand. I needed to show you that I'm trying. For the first time in weeks, I feel a small flicker of something I can't quite name. It's not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe it's the beginning of a willingness to see if redemption is possible. The next day, Emily makes good on her plan. She takes the boys out for ice cream after school, then spends the evening helping Liam organize his soccer gear for the upcoming season. I catch glimpses of their interactions, and it feels almost like old times. Almost. Meanwhile, I continue to focus on my own steps forward. I meet with Andrew again to finalize the legal separation, ensuring that I maintain financial control and custody stability. He advises me to stay vigilant, reminding me that things could still shift at any moment. That night, as I sit on the porch with a cold drink, Jake joins me, his face thoughtful. "Dad," he says after a long silence, "do you think Mom's really changing?" I take a sip, considering my answer. "I think she's trying," I say honestly. "But change isn't easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's up to her to prove she means it." Jake nods, his expression serious. "I hope she does," he says quietly. "I miss how things used to be." His words hit me harder than I expect, and I put an arm around his shoulders. "Me too, buddy," I admit. "Me too." As weeks pass, Emily's efforts become more consistent. Therapy, time with the boys, and her commitment to the plan outlined in her folder seem to be taking root. She no longer tries to justify her actions or seek forgiveness outright. Instead, she focuses on proving her sincerity through actions rather than words. I, however, remain cautious. Trust isn't something I can summon on command, no matter how hard she works to rebuild it. I continue documenting everything, keeping the lines of communication open with my lawyer. Mike's surveillance reports confirm she hasn't had any contact with Kyle, which brings a small measure of relief but doesn't erase the past. One evening, after dinner, Emily surprises me with an invitation. "I know it might be too soon," she says hesitantly, "but I thought maybe we could spend some time together. Just the two of us. Maybe grab coffee or go for a walk." Her question catches me off guard. For weeks, we've lived parallel lives under the same roof, interacting only when necessary. The idea of spending time with her outside of that dynamic feels strange, even risky. But something in her tone, hopeful yet cautious, makes me consider it. "All right," I agree after a moment. "A walk sounds fine." We set out later that evening, the boys staying behind with a movie and popcorn. The air is cool, the streets quiet. We walk side by side in silence at first, the sound of our footsteps filling the space between us. "I know I don't deserve this," she says eventually, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm grateful you agreed." I nod, keeping my gaze forward. "This isn't forgiveness," I say bluntly. "It's just a step, one of many you'll have to take." She looks down, but I catch a faint smile on her lips. "I understand," she replies, "and I don't expect anything more." As we continue walking, she opens up about her therapy sessions. She talks about the things she's learned, the ways she's trying to understand her choices and their impact. Her honesty feels genuine, but I remain guarded. By the time we return home, the conversation has shifted to lighter topics. It's the first time in weeks that we've talked about anything unrelated to the affair. As we step inside, the boys greet us with excitement, eager to share their review of the movie. Their smiles remind me of what's at stake. That night, I lie awake in the guest room, replaying the evening in my mind. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I'm not ready to let my guard down, but for the first time, I feel a glimmer of hope, not for us, but for the stability we might rebuild for our family. The days following our walk are marked by a subtle but undeniable shift. Emily and I interact more often, our conversations less strained. She continues her therapy sessions and keeps up with her commitments to the boys and her plan for rebuilding trust. While I still maintain my distance emotionally, I can't ignore the progress she's making. One afternoon, as I'm finishing up a report for work, Emily approaches me with a hesitant expression. She holds out a piece of paper, her hand trembling slightly. "What's this?" I ask, taking it from her. "It's a letter," she says softly. "For you." I wanted to put into words what I've been feeling, things I haven't been able to say out loud. I glance at her, then down at the letter. Her handwriting is neat, deliberate. I set it aside, unsure if I'm ready to read it. "Thank you," I say simply. That evening, after the boys are asleep, I sit in the guest room and open the letter. It begins with an apology, but it quickly delves deeper. She writes about her guilt, her shame, and her realization of the pain she's caused. She acknowledges that forgiveness may never come and accepts that she may have destroyed what we once had. "I can't undo what I've done," she writes, "but I can spend every day trying to be better, not for me, but for you and the boys. I'll never stop trying." Her words stir something in me. They don't erase the hurt or the betrayal, but they feel different this time. There's no defensiveness, no attempt to shift blame. Just honesty. The next morning, I find her in the kitchen, making breakfast for the boys. I set the letter on the counter. "I read it," I say. She looks at me nervously. And I appreciate it," I reply. "It doesn't change everything, but it's a step. Keep taking them." Her shoulders relax slightly, and she nods. "I will." Later that day, Jake and Liam come to me with an idea. "Dad," Liam begins, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "We should all go camping, like we used to. You, me, Jake, and Mom. It'll be fun." Jake nods enthusiastically. "Yeah, we haven't done that in forever. What do you think?" The thought of a family camping trip feels almost absurd given everything that's happened, but their excitement is infectious. I glance at Emily, who stands nearby, watching silently. "What do you think?" I ask her. "If you're okay with it, I'd love to go," she replies carefully. "For the boys." I nod slowly. "All right, let's do it." That evening, we start planning the trip. The boys are ecstatic, and even Emily seems genuinely excited. For a moment, it feels like old times, like a glimpse of the life we had before everything fell apart. The weekend of the camping trip arrives, and the boys are practically bouncing off the walls with excitement. The car is packed with sleeping bags, food, and enough supplies to last a week, even though we'll only be gone for 3 days. Emily and I exchange nervous smiles as we load the last of the gear, neither of us sure what to expect from this attempt at family bonding. The drive to the campsite is filled with laughter and chatter from the boys. Jake and Liam argue over who will get to start the first campfire, while I focus on the road and Emily gazes out the window, her expression thoughtful. The tension between us is still there, but it feels less suffocating. When we arrive, the boys leap out of the car and start exploring the site, their enthusiasm infectious. Emily and I set up the tent together, falling into an easy rhythm that feels surprisingly natural. For the first time in a long time, it feels like we're working as a team. As the sun sets, we gather around the fire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. The boys recount their favorite childhood memories, and their laughter fills the air. Emily watches them with a soft smile, her eyes glistening in the firelight. It's a rare moment of peace, one I didn't think we'd have again. Later that night, after the boys fall asleep in the tent, Emily and I sit by the dying embers of the fire. The forest is quiet, the only sounds the rustling of leaves and the distant call of an owl. "Thank you for this," she says quietly, breaking the silence. "For letting me be here. For giving me a chance." I nod, staring into the glowing coals. "The boys wanted this," I reply, "and I want what's best for them." "I know," she says, her voice steady. "But I hope you know that I want what's best for you, too." Her words hang in the air, but I don't respond. I'm not ready to give her that reassurance, not yet. The wounds are still too fresh, and trust is a bridge that needs time to rebuild. The next morning, we hike through the forest, the boys leading the way with boundless energy. Emily and I walk behind them, our conversation light but genuine. For the first time in months, I catch a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with, the woman I thought I'd lost. When we return home, the boys are already planning our next camping trip. Their joy is contagious, and for a moment, the cracks in our family feel smaller, less overwhelming. That night, as I lie awake in the guest room, I think about the trip, about Emily's efforts, and about the life we've built together. The path forward is still uncertain, but for the first time, I feel like there's a chance, however small, that we might find a way to move forward. Emily's betrayal hasn't been erased, but the foundation for something new, something stronger, is being laid piece by piece. It's not a second chance for her, it's a second chance for all of us. Have you ever faced a challenge like this in your relationships? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.